Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you. Delighted to be here. I want to start by thanking Dom and Tad, the Euro Board, and of course, my longtime friend, Peggy Love. And I have to thank Priscilla Montana, the owner of Cultural Awareness, for bringing me here to do this. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Priscilla. And my wonderful panel of entrepreneurs who are here to share with you how possibly you may want to learn from them how they're getting ready for the future. How do we stay viable? And one of the reasons why we decided to do this session was Peggy and I were having a conversation, and I'm sure you all know Peggy Love from the welcome session that Dom introduced her. She's in charge of the content for the conference and does a really great job. Very collaborative in how she worked with us in this project. And the concern is, how many here, and if you would be so kind as to raise your hand, are owners of a company other than these three people? Please raise your hand. Yeah, Priscilla also. Okay, or part owners. Well, we appreciate you coming here because what we want to do is say, how do you remain viable when there's so much change in our industry and so much acquisition and so much gobbling up of smaller companies? And those of you who don't want to be gobbled up, how do you stay relevant? How do you stay ahead of what's coming instead of being gobbled up? So that's pretty much what we want to talk about. And these wonderful people here today each have a very compelling story to tell you. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is not only that we have two really premier European destination service providers represented here, but also someone who's outside of the destination service industry in Elizabeth. So I'm hoping that you'll take some interesting information away. And that is why this session is about you, because we want to answer your questions. We want to hear your ideas. We just ask that you be kind of cognizant of time. Okay? So let's get started, and I'm going to see if technology works. Yes. I'd like to introduce Sophie Rayberg, Jeremy Berthaud, am I saying it correctly, Dominique? Jeremy Berthaud, and Elizabeth Sawyer. They will be talking about their companies themselves, so I'm not going to give you a long description of them. But I will tell you that they will be discussing a lot of these points, and I want to give you just a little idea of why we put this together. So, evolution or revolution? Are you evolving as a company, or do you have to cause a revolution in your company in order to get to the point that you want to get? And I think that those are two different things, because sometimes evolution happens very slowly, very slowly. And for those of you who do believe in the theory of evolution, and I hope that's all of you, unlike many Americans, we know that evolution takes time to weed out the problems, right? It takes a long time, but revolution can happen quickly. Now, are you going to have a bloodless revolution, or are you going to have a bloody revolution? And that's really going to depend on how you approach and how you look at the future. Innovation. This is one that we're all talking about, and it goes very much hand in hand with technology, because we know that the push for technology is coming at us, almost like a tsunami. It's everywhere, we hear it. And what's interesting is I've spoken to many of our partners who tell us, you know, when we get to the best and final, everyone's always talking about innovation, and technology. But when it comes down to that, they're not really using technology as much as they claim it's important to them. So that's another interesting piece. But who here is not considering innovation in the form of technology? Who is considering it, I should say? Everyone. And I'm grateful that you chose this session instead of the one that's running concurrently with ours about IT and what to know about IT. So innovation also comes in thinking outside of the box, right? How many destination service providers said, we are a high-touch company? Our services are high touch. People don't want technology. They want a person to help them. Meanwhile, the millenniums are coming up, and they're saying, I like high touch, and I need it sometimes, but I also want things rapidly accessible to me. And finally, what about lump sums? Who came up with that idea? And can we have them arrested, please? Because lump sums are made, and for us in the area that I'm passionate about, which is cultural training, lump sums is the dumbest idea anybody could ever have. Because what assignee is going to spend their money, their little lump sum of money, on cultural training? Oh, I've been to Singapore, I've been to Vietnam, I've been to the United States. I know how to do this. Culture, all those soft skills. Well, as the Harvard Business Review said, the hard skills are the soft skills. Those are the most difficult ones, and those are the ones that are going to trip you up. So how do we come up with solutions in a lump sum market that are cost effective, yet help that assignee and family be successful? Not an easy task, but I'm sure a lot of you are already putting something into place for that. And finally, again, I think these two go together also, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. There's this tension between innovation, investment in innovation and technology, and cost cutting. I always get those vowels wrong. Cost cutting. Where is that tension? I actually met with the owner of a large company in our industry the other day, and I asked him that question. I said, well, how do you decide? How do you decide whether to invest or not? He said, well, we have to do a business case, and we sit down and we analyze it, and you know what? The best way to do it is if we have a client partner who's driving us to do it. And that leads me to the last point, which is partnership. We all know the value of partnership. That's why a lot of us are here, right? To nurture those relationships that we have, to nurture those partnerships. But sometimes partnerships can be the answer, the solution to innovation. The term frenemies, friends who are enemies, your competition could be a wonderful partner if you can find a trusting, strong contract that protects both your interests. And that's actually how we solved, at Cultural Awareness, we solved one of our technology challenges. So just to let you know what that was really quickly, I went to Priscilla. I said, Priscilla, I'm getting tired of being invited to some RFPs, and they want e-learning. This was 10 years ago, e-learning. I'm like, first of all, I personally think e-learning is a great thing, but it's not the right solution. But the client wants it. We got to listen to what the client is saying. And they were saying, we want e-learning. We like what it has, not just because it's sexy, but it provides a lot of information in one place. My assignee doesn't have to go and look all over all kinds of material, some that we don't even know they're good material, to learn. It's just in time. It's more cost effective. So really, it's a wonderful solution. And we have so much information in our company because we do trainings on so many countries. And we were like, should we design it ourselves? Should we build it? Should we invest in building it? But there are all these other companies that provide it. How do we go about it? And so we started looking at what was out in the market. And we found a partner who was also doing instructor-led training, and we were able to, they have a phenomenal tool, we were able to build a relationship with them, a trusting relationship with them. And that's really important, because if you don't trust each other, when the challenges come, how do you resolve them, right? And it's been a very successful thing, and everyone has benefited. They have more business, we are able to provide a solution to our customers, and we're now doing something which I believe is the best way of providing cultural training, which is blended learning, bringing technology and the wonder of an instructor, a facilitator, your cultural confidant to the table together. And this allows, the e-learning allows them to continue learning over time. So these are the points that we want to talk about, and I think I've talked enough. Hopefully I haven't talked too much, and I want to pass it first to Ms. Sophie Rayberg.
Thank you. So first of all, I'm just realizing that however much experience you have in public speaking is completely irrelevant when there's 50 more people there than you hoped, and everybody knows your mother. So my apologies. We're super excited that there's so many here. Mercedes asked us to give a little bit of a short synopsis on who we are and what we do, even though some of us may not know. I like to always say, especially when we think about the future, that I think it's relatively easy to become a little bit complacent and hope for the future to tag you along in its ball game. And I think that we all need to be aware that the future doesn't wait for you. So if you, with a company, as well as also in your personal life, feel that something needs to be done or you want to move along with your business, make sure that you do it. Don't wait for anybody to facilitate your growth. Who are we? We are, I'll give you a really long German name, Professional Organizing Relocation Consult GmbH. We were founded in 1982 by my mother Claudia, who a lot of you will know. We are located in Frankfurt. We are a destination service provider who also does quite a lot of outbound services for our direct clients. We have a large percentage of direct clients, a smaller percentage of RMC work. Currently, we are with 25 FTE in our Frankfurt headquarters, and we hold both the Euro Global Quality Seal and the ISO certification. Yeah. What is our future going to look like? I wish I knew. I'd sleep better if I knew. We are very strongly trying to maintain, very fiercely I should also say, our direct client mandates. Germany is very fortunate to be a market where a lot of smaller but also bigger companies work directly with DSPs. I have absolutely no interest in losing them, and I think that we shouldn't really lose them. So we have been very energetic in our growth. And I would like to stabilize that. So we have gone from 9 FTE to 25 FTE in just under 3 years. And which is really amazing, but it also means that at some point I'd like to just have a couple of years where we're not onboarding new employees and we're just, everybody's doing what they need to be doing. I would like to invest in further technological steps. I think that especially Germany is at least 30 years backwards in regards to a lot of other countries. And I also think that from my mother's generation never necessarily thought of technology as something that had to be done, whereas in my generation it's something that we could never live without. And finding the best way to integrate it into your business is for us yet to be found. So if anybody has a really good idea, go ahead. Yeah. We are very fortunate in the way that we have a very strong and a very positive reputation in Germany. And I feel that it's very important to maintain that, so we are working very hard to keep ourselves on every radar possible, to ensure that the work we deliver is very good to excellent, and to ensure that we keep these strong partnerships with not only our clients, but also with all of our stakeholders, just to make sure that everybody still thinks, professional organizing in Germany. Yeah. We were asked to put together some considerations for the future, which of course is really difficult for anybody. I like to always say, however small your company is, don't think small. Be small, think big. If you have a dream, go get it. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. Most certainly don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. Don't think, oh, they're so big, I'm not going to try the RFP. Make conscious decisions on who you RFP to, what you put in your RFP. Don't not do it because you might not get it because you're too small. Always try and go where you want to be going. I think when you're a smaller company, you spend a lot of time thinking, what can I do for my client, rather than thinking, what do they need? It's also probably more European than it is American on thinking, okay, I can already do this, they need this, rather than what do they need, and then suiting your own programs to what your client, whether it's an RMC or a direct client, doesn't matter, and making it work so that you have something that caters to their needs. Yeah. And I think it's very important to be, we also learned it from the pilot yesterday, to be very confident. However, make sure that when you sell yourself confidently, that the work you deliver backs up your boldness. Yeah, it's really, don't have a big mouth and deliver bad service. Be bold, be confident in what you do, be happy and proud of what you do, but make sure that your team and your consultants can deliver to the word that you sell to all of your partners. And I always think if everything seems under control, you're just not going fast enough. So the faster the better, and as far as I'm concerned, everybody should try and conquer the world in their own way.
Yeah. Thank you. I do have a question for you.
Already?
Already, of course, of course. Because I'm sure everyone's wondering, since you mentioned Claudia and taking over from your mother, and
I'll let Jeremy go on that one.
and we know Jeremy, and I see Sean back there, so I know there's several people here who that might be the succession path, and who knows, possibly for Priscilla as well. So 2 parts of the question. The first part is, when you were thinking about doing it, what were the pros and cons that you can share with us? I'm sure there's stuff that is more personal, family. What were the pros and cons that you thought of? And once you decided to go forward, were any of those concerns actually, did they come true, or were there other concerns that you didn't anticipate that were bigger concerns than what you thought? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Concerns, so many, I couldn't even put them on 15 pages of paper. I think my main concern was I would have never routed to be an entrepreneur. I sort of liked the idea, everybody's going to think something of me now, but I liked the idea of marrying rich and having a couple kids. And, you know, I horseback ride, and I would have just had my horses, and my husband could have been a banker, and I thought that was a really comfortable idea. And so the plan of taking over never really happened until at one point she said, okay, I'm going to retire in 2 years, and if you don't take it, I'm going to either sell it or drop the key down the drain. And then my husband said, she's been doing this for 37 years, we have to have a look at this. And so we did, and I don't regret it at all. What I do think is that you have to give it 500% of yourself. And especially for somebody my age, where you still feel that you have a lot of social activities to do, you don't.
And
basically.
young children.
Yeah, and I mean the kids, they just happened. And she's referring to my 20-month-old twin boys. I think that you have to be 200% dedicated and committed, and that when I started, I said we have to, if we want to do this in the long term, we're going to put in everything that we are. We're going to build a solid base. We have a solid base, but an even solider base. We're going to do everything. It's going to be my main priority in life. And friends can be very critical about this, right? When you cancel everything and you never go out anymore, and they call you, can you come see me? It's midnight, and you're like, no, sorry, I'm working. And they're like, what's wrong with her? But it's really important to feel confident about what you're doing, to believe in what you're doing, to believe in your own assets, to believe that you are adding value to the company, and of course, to build an amazing team.
Thank you.
And more to your questions,
Yes.
points. One of the biggest concerns that I had, and which was also a reason why I joined the company and decided to take over, was this personal investment.
Yeah.
I had seen Dominique going at it for almost 30 years and being so worn out by everything. So I really clearly remember a conversation that we had when I was probably 15, and well, I never had plans to marry rich because, well, we don't have the same looks, obviously, but the conversation went like that, and I said to Dominique, and I think that's very generational, well, I'm not gonna work as much as you and Dad do. I'm gonna find a job. I'm gonna have a quiet life, be able to balance work life and personal life, and at the end of the day, I ended up doing the exact opposite. So it's probably in 10, 20 years, I'll revert to that. I hope I will. But the personal investment was one of my big concerns, and at the end of the day, when you find a sense of purpose in your work, it's not an issue anymore. It's something that you sit on and you don't even think about it. Even if you're working on the 1st of May, which is, well, sacrosanct in France. even if you're working in the dead of winter or the hot of summer, well, it's your company. It's a part of you, and that's really something else. That's something that gives the whole thing a purpose. Aside from the fact that we're in a great industry where we really help people through a difficult time, which is also a sense of purpose of its own.
Exactly.
That was my big concern and my big draw as well. So it's kind of ambivalent feelings there. And yeah, that's pretty much
Thank you.
The most prevalent feeling I had.
Thank you, Jeremy. So,
Shall I go? Yeah, sure.
I think it's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's me. All right.
Yeah.
So this is a short story about the company. As you can see, Dominique, my lovely mother, is here, and she founded the company in '91. So we're really a young company compared to Proforg. She founded the company basically in the kitchen in our house. So I wasn't born into the industry, but the industry was born into my house somehow, strangely. And yeah, basically, for the first 20 years of the company, I had absolutely nothing to do with it, aside from the fact that, Mom took over my playroom to do some business calls, and so when she did, we had to stop the console, stop the video game, be quiet, and then go, listen to her trying to sell a service that was basically non-existent in France at the time. So it was something that infused and imbued me throughout that time, but I didn't really pay attention to it at that moment, which led me to take a very different path. As I said, my plan was never to walk into our path. So I went into law, for some reason. Decided at the end of that I finally didn't want to be a lawyer, and went back to a business school to top off my curriculum. And I realized at that point, after a few experiences, that basically I had done all this path with absolutely no consideration to take over the company, but it was the perfect path to do so, because we do relocation, we do immigration services, so having a background in business, having a background in legal is really important for the business, and at the end of the day, that's helpful for me every day. And I joined the company for a small matter of contracts, something absolutely not business essential, and ended up staying there. And to come back to your question, it took me approximately 6 months before I decided to jump in. And that's one really key element that made my experience a good one and a successful one, I guess, is that we had time. If I wasn't rushed as Sophie was, perhaps, into the decision, I had really a long time to see what it meant in terms of personal investment, in terms of work, in terms of what was the status of the company at the moment, and what was the status I could see for it in the future.
So for the 6 months that you worked, those 6 months allowed you to kind of see inside the company how it worked and what it was going to feel like if you were observing Dominique more closely now, right? Not from the personal, but rather now from the professional lens. Did you also work with your mother ever before you took over the company?
No.
Never. So a different experience. So maybe.
And I now work with my mother and my husband, by the way. It kind of works. He obviously also tried to marry, and then it didn't work. So no, it's good.
I actually very much liked, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jeremy.
No problem.
I liked what you said when we met for breakfast the other day. I asked her how it is to work with your husband, and she said, "You know, it's wonderful. He builds the frame, and I color it in." I thought that was absolutely beautiful. To have that kind of a harmonious relationship with your husband at work is pretty darn cool. So.
I think that also, and I'm sure this resonates with Jeremy, is that when you take over from somebody, but especially a parent, the sort of the line between we love the old and we need to keep it, and we really need to lose the old and move forward, is super fine. And especially when you're in a family, we're
having a moment.
You still, you still you have to not be, even if it's not family, even if you're taking over from another generation, don't be afraid of the conflict. Yeah, okay, now I get it, I'm German, I'm good at conflict, but you can't, especially when it's something that's going to be your future, you can't let anybody not go along with you because my mom's done this for 35 years and that's the way how things work, right? So, and in any situation, I would,
absolutely that.
Yeah.
I mean,
He just wanted me to say it so
No,
that you would
yeah,
his mom.
I heard this sentence so many times. It's the way we do it. It's the way it's the way the clients want it. It's the way we do it, and it takes a lot of introspection, I guess, to be able to see another future, and that's something that you've been doing greatly. I mean, the figures are there to prove it. It's very difficult to be with your feet in the mud and see how it could change into something else.
Yeah.
And that's basically where time comes in, and the time factor is really important because getting to know the company, getting to know the people that do the work is so important to be able to change that.
Right.
Because at some point you're going to have to change some things, not all the things. And basically how I see my experience within the company is that Dominique built a very strong company with a very strong foundation. And now I have this perfectly good tool that I can shape however I want, which is such a great opportunity, and that's actually what led me to want to take over at the end of the
So can you share with us
period.
something that you wanted to do that was different, that maybe Dominique may have resisted or not thought was a great idea, and it had a positive outcome?
Well, it's going to go back to both Sophie's comments on the client portfolio and your comments about how we see ourselves as a very high-touch company. So when I joined the company, we were working for one RMC, client-directed. We had to work with them. We were stuck with them. They were stuck with us. And I saw that as a wasted opportunity. Now we have, well, so the portfolio at that time was probably 80-20 or 90-10, 90 direct, 10 RMC. Today it's 50-50. And that was one of the big objectives I had when I joined in 5 years ago, because it's a tremendous opportunity not only for economical growth, but also for organizational growth. I mean, getting people to work with an RMC, and I can see some people within the room that helped us get there, is a tremendous opportunity to mature your company. Because although we might say horrible things when we're between the SPs about RMCs, it's also a great way to organize your staff, to teach them that they have a process to respect and so forth. So it's really that example that sticks with me when it comes to the change I wanted to see and really happened.
How long did that take you to go from 10 to 50%?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
And what percentage additional revenue did you see due to that change?
Oh, well, we probably doubled the turnover in that period, which was great because it's it's not as an exponential growth as Sophie has seen, and that's resonating back to it. It's also great because you don't want to have growth that's out of hands. I mean, it's important to be able to grow, but it's also important to keep the values that make the company in the first place. Because if you have to destroy the foundations to build something on it, the something is going to fall down at some point.
Right.
So it's a balance. It's a balancing act you have to do between trying to push forward and sometimes hold back, because well, if you're gonna grow, you don't want to fall at some point, and that's also a big responsibility I felt, because joining in a business that's 20-30-year-old. You don't want to be the one bringing it down, even if it was with great intentions.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. I mean, and this is also something that's really that's a feeling that's both exhilarating and very
Petrifying.
Yeah, petrifying. That's what keeps you up at night and forbids you from sleeping. You have 10, 15, 20, 25 people that depend on you to work, to
Yeah.
get food on the table. So that's really something that's part of the sense of purpose that you get when you do that.
Yeah.
And doing that in a family environment obviously is really an added bonus,
Yes.
something else, and also an added difficulty. I mean,
True.
we were talking about conflict, and we saw conflict many a times. I would talk to Dominique, and she would talk to me in a way that we would never talk to anybody else in the company, which is good because, well, we wouldn't have staff anymore. but also it's good because it's the level of honesty that you need to have to dig deep and to.
So it's the revolution part of the
Yeah,
evolution.
exactly. And I would lean towards evolution rather than revolution because I frankly didn't change much in the company. The foundation was so good that I didn't change much. But yeah, a little revolution never hurt. Well, it did, and it does still today. As a French person, I'm sure you can understand why. I'm not wearing my yellow vest today, but the revolution is in our DNA after all.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's that's basically how I see the question.
Good.
So yeah, you've had plenty of time to see that. And one key thing that I did when I joined the company was do a SWOT Matrix. Coming out of business school, it felt right to do that. And you can see that, yeah, there are many strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats for the company. I've talked about them already, but it's really good to have some kind of, I would say, a formalized way of thinking about the business, and that's something that I would encourage to do to assess the business before you go in, not after you go in, like I did, because you might see some things that you can change beforehand, and obviously. This was a great tool, and this was a great mindset to analyze the company and to know where I wanted to take it. And the client portfolio mix is one issue, but there are many others, and we can obviously go back into that at some later point. But yeah, that's the way I analyzed the situation and coming in, and this has to be done and redone every month, every year, every day, because the situation changes, and
Right.
that's through this lens that I see the company. It's not the only one, but it's an important one when you have to find a vision, because you can have big plans, you can think big, but if you can't implement the plan, you're screwed.
Right.
So that's pretty much my story, but we'll get back to that
Yes.
at a later point.
Thank you.
If I can just tap in on
sorry.
Jeremy, I think what he says about when you create a tool, don't just use it once and put it aside and think, okay, I've done this now, we're good for the next 25 years. But it's easy to do that because you're so busy in your everyday work and you have your team to run, and it's so easy to get absorbed in the daily do.
In the weeds.
Yeah,
You're stuck
so
in the
make
weeds.
sure that when you do something that's also focused on your future, whether it's a growth plan, whether it's a business plan for a new job, or whether it's your SWOT, whether it's whatever you want to be doing, make sure to make a follow-up reminder, as you want to say, for yourself on, okay, I've done this now, how much time do I need to implement what I've assessed now, what do I want to do, and then revisit it timely, and don't push it away, because if you push it away once, you'll push it away twice, and then it's gone.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really important point, because I feel that that's probably one of the biggest threats to a small business, is the fact that you are small. You don't have a strategy department that's going to then tell marketing what the strategy is and tell sales, and everybody will go run out and do it. You're wearing a million hats, and getting stuck in the weeds and getting stuck in those daily problems, if you don't look up, you don't see the train that's going to hit you. You know, so that thoughtfulness needs to be applied to looking at the strategy as well on an ongoing basis, and hearing what's going on in the market. What is your competition doing? What is your client saying? You can't really be delivering global services, right, if you're stuck in your office in Lyon or in Frankfurt or Connecticut?
Philadelphia.
So let's go to Philadelphia.
That's a nice transition. So I'm a little bit the outlier here because I did not grow up in the relocation industry. And I'm owned by the banks instead of by my mother. So if I'm living under a railroad bridge sometime, I hope you'll all visit me. But yes, I was a high school English and French literature teacher for 15 years and took time off to raise my children, and was at that moment where I was reinventing myself, having been out of the workforce for a while, and was considering going back into the classroom, when a friend said to me, well, listen, before you do that, there's somebody I want you to meet. I want you to meet Georgia Bennett. She does education consulting. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, you actually have the perfect profile because you grew up overseas and you've lived here and you lived there and you've been in this system. So I joined what was then Bennett Educational Resources. So Bennett Educational Resources was founded in 1991 by Georgia Bennett, a little company providing education placement services around the world in the relocation space. So it was, I really do think it was the first company to do this. As is often the case, a brilliant idea that's actually very simple, which is that many times when families are moving internationally and they're moving their children between different curricula, there should be an education expert advising them. So somebody who can really explain to them what is the difference between the English A-levels and American APs, or the French baccalaureate versus its option internationale, or whatever it might be, that just as you would have an immigration expert do your immigration, you should have an education expert counsel families for whom situations are complex. So she started the company in 1991, a very small team of US-based consultants, all of whom had probably 15, 20 years in education before joining the company, and providing service worldwide remotely, also trained in research. So that was her company, a robust, sweet little company, intimate. I backed my way into it in 2007 and fell in love with it, and then lo and behold, Georgia was retiring. And I was heartbroken because I had found my niche. It was all about education. I had discovered the relocation world, which was where all the people I'd been looking for all those years living in America, where I was drawn to everything international, and my friends were from all over the world, but there was this piece missing. I was like, here you all are. I've been looking for you. And so my husband said to me, why don't you buy it? And I said, what are you, crazy? What do I know about running a business? I'm a literature teacher. He said, you'll figure it out. So it took me 2 years to get up the courage and the money, and I bought Bennett in 2009. So fast forward to 2018, and somebody said to me, Elizabeth, the company is all about you. It used to be all about Georgia, now it's all about you. You need your exit strategy. I said, my exit strategy? My jaw is finally unclenching. I'm just in. I'm not thinking about getting out. I still have 3 kids to educate. I didn't marry rich either, so whatever. And I thought, and somebody said, you have to get out of operations. You can't work on your company if you're in your company. You need to get investment and figure out how you're going to grow it. So I said, okay, but that means relinquishing control in certain areas. You mean I'm not going to be the one to talk to that RMC when they call, and I know how to do that the best way there is. And oh my gosh, you don't do it that way, you do it this way, which is how you feel when it's your company. And it took me a long time to feel that it was my company. I was just a worker bee, that I'm not sure I was visionary. I was so about just kind of keeping going. So this was a huge step for me, and to think about how do I grow the company. So I took one of my best consultants and I said, I hate to lose you in the field, but I need you to run this for me so that I can focus on growth. And at the same time, I became aware that our competitor, School Choice International, who had been around for almost 20 years, so a little bit younger than Bennett, and worked on a very different model of consultants all over the globe, was up for sale. And so they had approached me a few years earlier, and I had said, oh, I'm just enjoying playing with my toys, but maybe later we can talk. So I called them up, and I said, where do you guys stand right now? And Tim Dwyer said, well, funny you should ask. So we started to talk, and I thought I'll do my due diligence by verifying for myself that I don't want to make this move because we're too different. And they were 4 times bigger than we were. And so in the process of doing my due diligence, I said, you know, they have a lot of talent, and there is a shared mission there, and there are a lot of great people I would love to work with. And so before I knew it, I was going back to the bank, and I was saying, I know I haven't paid off my first loan yet, but now I'd like to quadruple it. And so at the beginning of 2018, Bennett acquired School Choice International, and we are now Bennett International Education Consultancy. And so, and I've kind of talked across the slides, but I realized, actually, I was saying to somebody the other day, when I went into it, I knew that I saw it as a very good way to grow Bennett. It's with hindsight that I realized what a really good and actually crucial move it was, because I realize now that that sweet company that I loved, Little Bennett, with our 20 consultants providing service around the world, that I think it would have been harder for us to survive than I realized. And even a year and a half in, I already knew it, but now I know it here, that with the consolidation, with acquisitions, with the need to have a larger global footprint, the need to have systems in place that, as Mercedes said, you know, when you're doing everything, you have that kind of the to-do list for today, and you have the longer range, big picture vision to-do list, and you don't get to that one fast enough. And so with greater resources, obviously, you can move ahead faster. One thing, something that was incredibly valuable to me was that at the point of the acquisition and in the process of rebranding, I went to all of our clients and I said, please, give me feedback. Tell me how you perceived Bennett. Tell me how you perceived School Choice International. What for you would be the best of both of them? And our branding team also did that. And I think it's something that we can all do. I had the perfect opportunity, and I was really touched by how willing clients were to have those discussions with me, how eager they were. But you can also do it for a 10th anniversary, a 20th anniversary, to go to your clients and say, would you do me a favor, sit down with me for an hour and tell me, what have you loved, what can I improve? So that would be, you know, you're probably all business people who know this. I'm still catching up, but that was really, really wonderful. And so I guess I would say, for many of us, that you know the challenges are obvious ones. How do you remain boutique and very dedicated to best practices when you're in an industry that's driving down cost and demanding that if you stay alive, you do it in larger volume. For us, the quest for IT online solutions when we're talking with parents about their children. And I finally moved along enough, being a lot older than you guys, that said, okay, I will open the door of my mind this much and say, okay, what kind of online tools can we have? What kind of apps can we create? And I think, if I were talking to somebody about Gideon, Ben, or Layla, those are my children, I don't want to do that online. I want a person to say to me, tell me about your children, and boy, will I talk. And so that's kind of the challenge, is how you take a profoundly emotional and personal service and do something more modern with it. So if you have any ideas, please let me know. I'm willing to at least think about it. So I don't know, what I would say would be,
No, I'm sorry, you have to go back.
I have to go back?
Yes, because
Okay.
I like that last bullet. Wait a minute. I like the DSP school finding. How
Oh,
do you,
yes.
how, because we're a lot of DSPs
Yes.
here. How would you
Yes.
complement and
Okay, so that was also, it was always in my mind, but now seems more possible with more time and more woman power, frankly, is that those partnerships that we knew we wanted to forge, we can now work on more. We can, and this is an example of the frenemy question, most times DSPs do the schooling piece in relocation, and an education consulting firm is brought in when there's a problem or there's a particularly complex situation. And so it's very easy to think of DSPs as our competitors. And yes, so in a way we're competitors, but we're really not, in that we all have the same goal, which is to provide the best possible service to a family and to make it seamless so that we all look good. And some of the best situations that we've had with families have been when we're working hand in hand with all of the other players on a team. And when we can call up a DSP we work with regularly and say, hey, we want to recommend a school in such and such a neighborhood. Can they afford it? And he'll say, and I don't see them go by anymore because I'm not in operations, but I used to. Hey, Michael, can the Smith family afford Rye? Nope. Look elsewhere. Okay, we'll be back. How about Bronxville? Yep. So, those kinds of discussions and coordinations, or services that we've actually recently created that are intentionally designed to complement exactly what a DSP does and take something off their plate at a low cost point, which is something very new and very scary for us. But so
Thank
let's
you.
see. I think I covered it. But,
Yeah, you did.
Okay, yes, I covered it. So. Yes, I think I did it all backwards, but voila.
Voila. Thank you. So, can I ask you then, what kept you up at night, other than the banks owning you?
Right.
What kept you up? What keeps you up today? Are they the same things? And
The banks don't keep me up anymore. I've gotten used to them. I think there were things that were a lot harder than I anticipated. Things that I thought would be easy. We were talking about this yesterday. Such as changing a culture of a company or blending cultures. And I thought that that would be easier, and I realized that it is, as is often the case, the things that are the most satisfying are the things that take time and patience, like a good meal, and that creating the unified culture of two companies that I want wasn't something I was going to do in 6 months. I think I thought I could maybe just do it overnight. And it was painful, but as I see it happening now, there is nothing that delights me more than seeing us work as a single-minded team with shared values.
that's awesome.
So-
That's beautiful. And I know there's a lot of people in the audience, or at least several people in the audience, whose companies are going through that right now. We've known there's been quite a few acquisitions and mergers among the RMCs and possibly other smaller companies. And so for those of them who may feel that that never is going to happen,
Right.
what advice do you have to offer them?
I would say don't shy away from making the changes you know you have to make. I tried to. There were times when I was sort of resolutely saying, this can work or this can work, and I knew in my gut it couldn't. And so I waited, and then when I made those changes, it was harder. And surround yourself, make your closest team the people you can rely on night and day, and that you want for them what you want for yourself. And that if you are loyal to them, to your core, they will return it. And that they are the people who say to me, Elizabeth, we've brought you lunch, step away from the computer. Or, Elizabeth, if I see an email go by this weekend, we're not speaking to you on Monday. You know, that it goes beyond just, so maybe I do have some mothers in my company.
Well said. But I do think that
Yeah.
the cultural piece is a really good addition to this conversation. And I know we spoke yesterday at breakfast a little bit about the cultural change between the company that Claudia had and the company that Sophie and Remco have. So I don't know if you want to say anything about that, or Jeremy, if you feel that the company culture has changed from when Dominique was in. I'd like to hear your perspectives.
I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for us to say anything without everybody feeling that we're judging our mothers, which is not in any way or shape or form what we aim to do. But I think solely the generational difference is huge. And Germany, of course, is a country where everybody calls you by your last name. And there were people that were working for my mom for 18 years, and they were calling her Frau Rehberg. And I studied and worked in the Netherlands, and every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, didn't matter. You would go out after work for a beer. You'd be super social. The people that you worked with were also the people that you hung out with. And so when I walked in, I just thought, wow, all of the coldness, what is this? And for us, it's been really valuable that especially when you have organizational and cultural change is huge for people. Yeah, I mean, in countries like also, for example, Germany, where people are, everybody's going to think I'm really awkward, but where people are used to being soldiers, it's really difficult to get them to open their minds, to bring out ideas, to be happy about, to be proud, to resonate what they're doing, to go out and say, ich kann das, I can do it, rather than, ooh, maybe I can have a go at it. And also, what I feel has been super big for us is I try to be really transparent in what we're doing. I convey very openly to our team, these are the changes that we're making, these are the changes that we're making in programs. We take them along on also the details of the pricing. This is what we're doing, this is why we're moving you here, and that's why you're going to be doing something else. And giving them the chance to also not in a meeting session, but also my husband's social, right? So when you have barbecues or you have them in for breakfast and you give them the chance to speak to you about what are you doing and why are we enforcing this management level, or why are we not, and what are we doing with this client, and just to ensure that they know what's going on so that they can identify from their core with what you're doing, because it also gives you the choice, or it also gives you the idea that you can select a lot better who's in your team that you feel is pulling to the core of what you're doing, which especially in our case is very important. They either move with you or they move against you. If they move against you, they gotta go.
Right.
If they move with you, take them as far as you can, take them as positively as you can, enforce them into what they're doing, train them, pay them, do what you need to do to keep them, because these are the people, as Elizabeth says, that will keep you going even when you have a weak moment, which we all do.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear your perspective, but I just realized the time, and I had promised that we get some questions. So Peggy and Priscilla have the mics. Any questions, comments, suggestions that we can take from the group?
Okay, this is mic one. Oh,
Mike,
sorry. Unfortunately, because of the awesome job I have with Eura, I have to be somewhere else right now. So I'm going to let Priscilla take your questions. Please do stay with questions. I just want to personally thank this great group. Awesome.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? We answered all your questions. I don't believe it. But, Jeremy, maybe then you can share your piece of that. Oh, yeah.
Please.
I was really interested in in the succession process and building growing organization. And I was just wondering the degree to which you were emotionally transparent, because you go through a roller coaster ride yourself, and what's going on inside you. You were telling people, you said, you were informing people. To what degree do you share your emotional state with your team around you?
So I can take this one because When I joined the company, I decided to have a very neutral approach, and I wasn't showing my emotions to anybody but my mom within the company. And this is beginning to change. I had some annual meetings with some of the team this past month, and I remember sharing with one of them, one of whom, sorry, we didn't see eye to eye on every topic, to say the least, and, basically I really shared with her the way that her approach of the company changed me, because and how it brings value to the company, namely on the way we handle our own supply chain, because she's one that was an independent consultant at some point, and then was integrated into the company 20 years ago, and she's kept that to her core. So that's what makes us today a different client to those suppliers. We work with freelance consultants, and we try to be the best client we can for them, because we try to have the best consultants we can. So this is, and I realized through the years how much of an asset this is to the company. And while 5 years ago I would have said nothing and tried to remain as emotionally neutral as possible, I really opened up. So this is a process, and this is an approach that's changing for me. Perhaps it's because I feel more confident in myself and in sharing, and I think it's made me a stronger person and a better manager in that sense. So it's evolving, but I'm getting there.
If I can pitch in, we work as a DSP, but also especially also when we look at schooling. We teach our employees, our consultants, to react to the emotional responses they get from clients. And to be able to assess emotion, you need to feel emotion. And especially when you go through quite a lot of organizational change, it would be naive to think that all of these people don't go home worrying about, ooh, what am I going to do, or what is going to happen, and ooh, how's my role going to change? And for us, it's been hugely important to share to them and also say, that the highs are high and the lows are low, and to not be afraid and say, okay, I'm kind of worried today about this client, or look guys, we did this, we're super happy. And it's I think in a business that is so where it's so important to be fine-tuned on our clients' emotions, we shouldn't forget that our employees and our consultants share a large part of those emotions too.
Well said. Thank you. Any other questions? I want to be respectful of your time, so it's a couple minutes past 11. There's a break now before the next session, I believe, and I want to thank each and every one of you. I have enjoyed so much hearing your stories, and today also in sharing it. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.